Hey there! Happy Halloween! I almost forgot to record this because I was so busy. Before I get started, I found this really cool guide about Multivictor games. Talks about what their whole deal is, the potential of them, some common pitfalls if you're adapting other designs, and like how to address tension in Multivictor games. So, if this is a design space you're curious about, I would highly recommend checking it out. I'm going to be sticking it in the description down here. So, yeah. In addition to that, I've had a couple of media appearances this month. I had the pleasure to be on the Beyond Solitaire podcast. I got to be interviewed, and oh my god, Liz is such an amazing host. That podcast was like so much fun to do. We talked about some fun stuff like patriarchy and like my feelings on Multivictor games, and yeah, it's very good. So I would highly recommend checking it out. I'm pretty sure it's right there. Yeah, or maybe there. I don't know. Um, Also, I had a very lovely surprise. Jamie, when I was on Jamie Stegmeier's YouTube channel talking about our favorite Multivictor games, he had mentioned that he was interested in trying out Bread, so I sent him a copy, not really expecting much to come of it, and he made a video about some of his favorite mechanics from it, how it's like equal parts like adversarial and cooperative, and I'm really glad that was like something that he took away from it because yeah, that's awesome. I was really that was a really pleasant surprise. Speaking of Brad, if you signed up on the prototype request form, you should be receiving your prototype sometime soon, like early November, like maybe like near the end of the first week or so, maybe second week actually. And yeah, thank you so much for that. Before I sent those out, I decided to make one little change to them, specifically to the way the NPCs worked. I wanted to give them a little bit more personality, and while I was in the process of giving them a little bit more like personality, I realized that they didn't really embody NPCs in the game. They were more like abstractions of the NPCs, but still within the framework of a player. So I've really changed them fundamentally. When you play as the tree folk, you play as the deck. Like, you don't play as a player with the whole deck in their hand, you play as the deck. Players take cards from your hand and consume from your hand, and you deliver the events and you decide who they go to instead of the players dictating that. So, yeah. And when you play as a Fae, you're embodying all the losses that you cut at the very beginning of the game. Instead of quietly dying in the outskirts of civilization, you cause mayhem and try to get the players to stop playing, which is not really possible as NPCs, but yeah, that's what happens. They pretty much break the game, but they're not really intended to be balanced. You're not really intended to play them rules as written. But yeah, I'm really liking this change. It feels more right. Really utilizing the potential of those separate postcard setups. Technically changes the player count to like 3 to 8 players as opposed to 6, but not rules as written, so not really. Um, yes, so Conviction, I finally had a chance to rewrite the rulebook after I got some excellent feedback from Jinku about how to more seamlessly introduce like the role-playing elements of it. I've pretty much removed a lot of role-playing stuff from it. It felt very tacked on. Instead, I'm describing it as like an optional storytelling element of the game and weaving that more in with the rest of the rules. And I'm really liking how it's a little bit more integrated. I had one test of it so far, and it feels like it's more the direction I want it to go, because like the way I had before it felt a little abrasive in a way. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah. I also wrote the rule book for Vibes, and while doing some unguide testing for it, I began to realize that game's not as simple as I thought. I'm pretty much completely changing the way the play mechanic works. I'm pretty much removing the deck from the game, like altogether. The cards you get at the beginning are pretty much the cards you have all game. It was just adding too much complexity, and it wasn't really worth it. And it was making setup a lot more complicated. So now instead, the way that the ending is a little bit more like unpredictable, the way I'm keeping it non-deterministic, is that you play cards from other people's hands. And I'm still testing the way I want to do that exactly, but in the process I'm experimenting with changing it to a popcorn turn order. Instead of like a circular one, one of the players that you swap with, you choose one of them to go next. So the idea that I'm playing with to give a little agency to players who aren't getting swapped with is that they could raise their hand. And if you swap with a player with a raised hand, you get to play a card from their hand before swapping. You get a little bit more information. And also potentially end the game. So yeah, that's what I'm playing with there. It's early to say, but I like it, yeah. For Unraveled, I'm still figuring out exactly what I want to do with this. It's hard because the base game is really well received, even if it's like technically solvable. Like there's a lot of solvable games, but and I also am not 100% convinced that it's like entirely solved. But the thing is, like, you kind of need to be pretty experienced with the game, with the logic of the game, to really capitalize on the element of the loyalties and the blackmail. So I'm thinking about just packaging that as a separate thing and developing that separately once I've had like people who have the game and enjoy it. Alternatively, I just really streamline the blackmail loyalty system, but I haven't figured out a way to do that I'm really happy with. So that's the challenge there. So that's pretty much it for this month. I don't have a lot of big plans for November, although PAX Unplugged is hot on November's heels, early December. So if you're going to that, I hope I see you there, because I really love PAX Unplugged. Otherwise, yeah. See you later. Bye-bye. Like my costume? Like a toy. Oh, my microphone. I can't turn all the way. What? I'm in milk. That's not Knife Bunny. I'm not talking about not Knife Bunny stuff. This is Knife Bunny Chow.